right, shalom. First and foremost, giving all praise, glory, and honor that's due to Yahweh Bash and Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachak, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, who rule well, peace and blessing to the 144,000 and the hopeful elect. Shalom Barakatham. I'm going to be a real quick lesson. I'm going to just title this, Keep Your Head on a Spiritual Swivel. All right, now this goes into our number one position of being a watchman. A watchman doesn't just look, one direction. Now, you may have a multitude of watchmen that are positioned at different points of the wall of the tower, but ultimately you have all of the angles covered. Now, when you go throughout your day-to-day life, you should not walk around tense or paranoid, but you have to be looking constantly at things and examining your surroundings and knowing what's going on. Even if you go into like a supermarket, people are looking for things. And remember, there's going to be a great accusation thrown our way. And, Esau really don't need anything. He can just make stuff up. With the things we can see in our phone, he can make us look crazy, or he can just do a deep fake, or put things out of context is what I mean, going on our phones and stuff, and we have to be able to demonstrate upstanding character, and really above upstanding character, because this place is so low that you're basically, it's oppression, you're constantly at the disadvantage. When the scriptures say, I'll send you forth as sheep among wolves, that's very, very true. Okay. Even if it's somebody that you can physically overpower or overcome, it's still going to be, an L. And we gotta constantly look out for these things. And the other thing is just spiritually as well too, man. You see brothers are starting to get attacked spiritually. You gotta have your spiritual guard up. All right. And like Ephesians the 6th chapter said, this is not a war of flesh and blood. All right, this is a spiritual war. Okay, so put on the breastplate of righteousness. All right, and being a righteous man in this society, because this society is so wicked, it's very, very bitter, man. It's just a very bitter thing. But we had to drink the dregs, as the scriptures say. All right, and once we get through, once we finish the tail end of that, the Lord is going to completely reverse this thing, and He really already is. All right, but you can't be the running back in the end zone. I've seen it in the NFL happen before. He makes a good run, and he gets cocky at the end. Starts letting his guard down, and he drops the football, man. And he was right there in the end zone. We don't want to get presumptuous and thinking that, we got it as well either, man. We got to constantly still be on defense, even though we know that our story is written that we're going to win, because it's just a matter of respect and just showing your diligence. It's a discipline, a good running back, man. He's not just good with how to move. He's always thinking about how he's holding the ball, the angle that he's holding it, to not fumble it. Because you can be fast as hell all you want to, and be strong as hell all you want to, but if you lose the football, and all of that was for naught, and that's how we have to look at this truth, man. And it's a pearl of great price, and we got to tread carefully, even though we have the high ground. I'm meditating on that this morning. Because it's like, man, you feel like you're doing something, you're in a moment, you're just chilling, and then all of a sudden, you're in a scenario where you can be accused, you can possibly get the police involved, and you can't crash out. That's the frustrating part. And the thing is you'll be justified and righteous. It's not necessarily righteous, but you'll be justified, in your response. But then again, we're not, because the Lord gave us that wisdom. That's why we have Paul's writings, which some can't scoff against. But Paul taught you wisdom, man. Okay, when he says you're not under the law, you're led of the Spirit. So you may do things that may look weird to brothers, but because you have the spirit of the Lord in you, you still know the right moves to make in that instance, you know? Like how Paul made it seem like he wanted Agrippa to be an Israelite, you know? That, you know, some brothers may be offended at that, but he had the wisdom to know how to navigate those situations, even though it looked bad on the outside, you know? And so when the scriptures say in Isaiah 33, wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of our time, that's definitely true, man. We cannot win getting carnal and low level with these people, man. Okay, you know, I've been on the phone over the past couple of weeks, just you know, having to calm myself down. I'm wanting to just curse people out, man. You know, because of the situations that I'm having to try to deal with things, you know, and they know they're on the phone, customer service. They you know, they got attitude. You know, nobody likes their job, and they talking down to you like you a piece of shit, man. But if you crash out on them and they can just hang up, ain't nothing you can do. They got your money, they can ruin your credit, they can do all kind of things. You know, it's just a constant bitterness, man. But remember, Yahweh Shai, all right, and as it's written in Isaiah 53, he was a suffering servant, man. He was acquainted with grief, and that's what we got to do. We got to get acquainted with feeling low, you know, because as we see people and this society drop and people start to fall, you know, call Allah Yahweh Shai, and we start to see people start to fall, we start getting anxious, more bitter. It's kind of like on the back end of a fast, man. You know, you may go, if you've ever done a fast for like, you know, 3 days, which is a long time, you ever done that before, man? The last day, when you know you're about to eat again, your body, you know, nope, wait till sundown. Your body wants to eat now. You're like, you already did 2 days, you know? Your flesh starts rationalizing things because you're close to the end, and that's something that we deal with through the spirit. We can see these people are at their end, and so, you know, it's tempting to want to, you know, exercise your own judgment, you know, or expedite it. But remember, you know, it's patience, man. You know, what did Yahweh Shai do in the Garden of Gethsemane when they set him up? They wanted him to take out the Roman legion, you know. Judas did. You know, I was just watching Apostle Tahar video that made me think about Judas's motivations, which I never really have to go back and really reread it again. But, you know, Apostle Tahar was saying that Judas really wanted the Lord. He wanted to bait the Lord into fighting, okay? Because he was a zealot, you know. But the Lord had the spiritual powers, and he chose not to do it because it wasn't time yet, you know. We're in a time of suffering, okay? And then once the Lord flips the switch on this place, you know, Isaiah 25:7, the covering cast is lifted. That's it, man. There is no more suffering. The scriptures say, you know, I will wipe all tears from your eyes, man. You know, and we're gonna get the satisfaction and the pleasure of running through everybody that ever even troubled us, man. Not just, you know, grievously harmed us or even killed some of us, but anybody that ever vexed you, man. You know. So it's constantly watching, man. Constantly watching, and it's especially important now in the home stretch, because that's the hardest part. They want you to gas out and not make it the 12th round, but you know, you gotta have that Rocky spirit in it, that Rocky Marciano spirit, okay? And endure, you know, because that's what the Lord requires of us, and the Lord knows that we have it in us to do it. That's why we are the men who chose to push out this word, this truth. Okay, because when they try to really slander us and come against us, they're gonna make up something, but they're ultimately not gonna be able to gainsay. You know, they're not gonna be able to say, well, this or that. You know, we're gonna be defended through the Spirit of the Lord. You know, so just a lesson I wanted to speak a little bit on. Lord willing, this is edifying. Call Allah Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai Hashem Rachak Shalom from Yashra.